What's going on, Bengals fans? Chris Daughtry back with you guys here on Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, we are not doing our overreaction today. It is just too close to the NFL trade deadline. So we're going to talk about what some of those NFL insiders have to say after yesterday's loss about what the Bengals' plans are going forward here over the next couple days. But to start off today's show, we're going to talk about this Bengals defense and why Zac Taylor needs to be fired. And if you guys want Zac Taylor to be fired, make sure you get down there and like today's video. The record here on Bengals Breakdown for a regular video is 1,020 likes. I think we can beat it on today's show. So if you guys want to fire Zac Taylor this week, make sure you drop a like on today's show. All right, first up, let's talk about how absolutely god-awful this Cincinnati defense is. And we're going to go through a couple of different insiders, a couple of different, NFL people have put stats out there over the past, couple of hours here since that loss. Just how bad this Bengals team is, or the defense in particular is. This one from Pro Football Talk saying the Bengals have allowed 500 or more yards in 3 games this season. The rest of the NFL has only done it twice. And 2 of those, by the way, were the past 2 weeks where you scored 39 points and then 42 points. So it's not even like it's, the offense was bad and the defense was bad. It's just straight all on the defense here. You can blame a little bit of stuff on the offense from yesterday. They did have 3 turnovers in that game, but overall, you score 42 points. You should win every single football game you play in the NFL when you're scoring that many points. This one as well, was put out by Jay Morrison. This is the opponent's points per drive. Now, this stat started to be tracked in the year 2000, so it's, we're 25 years into it now. The Bengals are the worst team since they started tracking this stat. They're allowing 2.93 points per drive for those, opponents, points per drive there. And then you also had this one. I don't even know what defensive DVOA is. I tried to do a little bit of research and I tried to understand it a little bit better. But look, man, it is just another metric saying how bad this Bengals defense is. They're the second worst since 1978 in defensive DVOA. It's basically the average how good or bad your defense is on every single drive. It's basically what it is there. They started tracking that metric in 1978. You were the second worst team since that metric has been, they've been keeping track of that metric there. And then you had this one as well that came out yesterday with tight end Colston Loveland having 118 receiving yards yesterday, and rookie running back Kyle Monangai rushing for 176 yards. The Bears became the first team in NFL history with a rookie rushing for at least 175 yards and a rookie recording 100 or more receiving yards in the same game. Obviously, that comes on, Colston Loveland's game-winning catch at the very end of the game when you just could not make a tackle. That's something that this Bengals team has been absolutely god-awful at, is tackling the ball carrier. This last stat here that I want to touch on from Next Gen Stats, the Bengals defense missed 15 tackles for 133 additional yards against the Bears yesterday, including that 35-yard play on Colston Loveland's game-winning 58-yard touchdown. The Bengals entered Sunday with 94 missed tackles for 645 yards. Both are the most in the NFL. You add on another 15 and another 133 yards onto that. This defense just absolutely cannot tackle. And I know, myself included, throwing Jordan Battle under the bus for going for the hit on Colston Loveland instead of actually going for the tackle. But, Colston Loveland was in a triangle of Bengals defenders there. There were 2 other guys there that could have made the tackle as well. Those guys weren't able to bring him down either. And Zac Taylor was asked if there is any possible way that the Bengals defense could be fixed this year, and this, I think, is just a very, very damning statement by Zac Taylor. He said, we're going to do everything that we can to find a way. We should have a find a way tracker on Zac Taylor's press conferences because he says that just way too much. We got to find a way. He said, I think it's impossible for me to say yes or no about can this defense be fixed right now? We've been trying everything we can, so we'll just keep working at it. I just think there is absolutely no possible way that you could keep Zac Taylor as the head coach at this point in the season. You have given him more than enough time. You had last season that you went through as well, where a lot of people wanted Zac Taylor fired then. And, they end up, making a change at the defensive coordinator spot. Well, that's still not the fix either. So I want to hear from you guys down inside the comment section. Will Zac Taylor be fired this week? It is the bye week, and it is also the NFL trade deadline. So a lot of the times you see coaches, if they end up getting fired in the NFL, they get fired during the bye week. So I want to hear from you guys. He still has one more year left on his contract, so I'm not holding my breath. But will Zac Taylor be fired this week? Type Y for yes or in for no down at the pinned comment of today's video. I can answer the question for you about can this Bengals defense be fixed this year. It absolutely cannot be fixed this year. And as painful as it might sound, I think everything just has to be blown up at this point. If this ownership cares at all about winning football games, Zac Taylor has to be fired and Duke Tobin have to both be fired this week. I saw somebody yesterday on Twitter saying that they would be opposed to actually firing Duke Tobin. And I think the problem that you run into is, you would have a disconnect between the GM and the coach if you just fire one and then the next year you fire the other. You want those guys to be able to work together. So what happens if you fire Zac Taylor this year and you let Duke Tobin, hire the next head coach, and then next year or the year after that, Duke Tobin ends up getting fired? That will almost undoubtedly turn out bad. It always does in the NFL. Look at the Tennessee Titans. They continue to do it every single time. They hire a head coach, they fire the GM the next year, and it's just back and forth, back and forth. And the Tennessee Titans are a dumpster fire of a franchise right now. And it would be right on par for the Bengals to do that exact same thing. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up going that route or down that route. But right now, you have a couple of guys who just flat out cannot evaluate or develop talent. We're going to talk about some trades here in just a second because I think that is the only way that you can start resetting this Bengals team right now. We are going to talk about that here in just a second, but first we want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's show. That is Prize Picks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with Prize Picks, and the weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right never gets old. So keep the season rolling on Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Prize Picks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning that you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want more than on Josh Allen's passing yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup only on Prize Picks. We have got a power play cooked up for you guys for tonight's Cowboys versus Cardinals game. Going with Dak Prescott, more than passing yards for him at 268.5. And then Jacoby Brissett going with a more than on him. Pass yards plus rush yards. That's another thing I really like about Prize Picks. It's not just one or the other. Sometimes they do those, both stats included in the same one there. So going with a more than on both of those. On Prize Picks, by the way, how you play is up to you. If you want flexibility, choose the flex play where you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payout, go for the power play. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. So download the Prize Picks app today and use promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That link's down in the comments section and the description of today's video. Prize Picks, it is good to be right. Now, there was another trade that went down this morning, and I'm not necessarily saying this is one that the Bengals should have done, but this is the kind of stuff that just kind of makes me mad about this Bengals, front office here. The Eagles are a top 5 roster in the NFL, and they are still making trades. What's interesting about that, though, is that it sets a clear baseline for what I think you can get now for Trey Hendrickson if you end up making a trade with him. Jalen Phillips ended up going to the Eagles for a 2026 third-round pick. And I think at this point right now, you just cannot rebuild around Trey Hendrickson. I don't want, to trade Trey Hendrickson. I don't think anybody wants to trade Trey Hendrickson. But, if you want to start down a path of rebuilding this defense, it has to start with him. As, unfortunate as it does sound, you simply just should not rebuild your defense around a 30-year-old edge rusher, no matter who it is. Send him to a team like the Lions so he can at least compete for a chance to win a Super Bowl. They have shown that they're willing to play ball. They're willing to make trades, and they right now are in their championship window. They actually do, right by their guys, and I think this is, the one chance that the Bengals could do the exact same thing, at just doing right by Trey Hendrickson, something that they haven't done in the past. I even think that the Lions might even sign him to a contract extension, because that is what happens when you have a competent GM that knows how to make deals and make them work. With the Jalen Phillips deal going down for a third-round pick, you should be able to get a little bit more for Trey Hendrickson than what teams were probably willing to give you before. You're at the point right now, with the trade deadline being tomorrow, where maybe teams might start getting a little bit desperate here and are willing to give you a little bit more than what they weren't trying to give you a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago when they were trying to trade Trey Hendrickson there. But you see, if you're giving up a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips, you should be able to get at least a second or multiple seconds for Trey Hendrickson. We'll see if they end up getting a first. That's what the Bengals have wanted in the past, but teams just have not been willing to play ball when it comes to a Trey Hendrickson trade for a first-round pick. So what is the percent chance that the Bengals end up trading Trey Hendrickson here in the next just over 28 hours or so? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section of today's show. Now, a couple of insiders put their 2 cents into it in the last 24 hours or so here. This one's from Jay Glazer talking about the Trey Hendrickson rumors. He said they did say no originally, talking about the Bengals front office. And then the last couple of days, a bunch of GMs said, hey, you better check this out, because now they are saying yes to us. Whether or not they can get what they're asking for, I don't know about that. It seemed like a hard no about a week ago or so, and now it's not a hard no. And we talked about this during our live stream yesterday for that Bengals versus Bears game. Adam Schefter put this tweet out at around 6 a.m. yesterday morning, saying the Bengals have told teams that they don't intend on trading Trey Hendrickson, but if they lose the game, which they ended up doing, there are some sources who have wondered if that might be enough to change Cincinnati's mind. And then this morning as well, just a couple of minutes before we started filming this video here, Diana Rossini putting this tweet out as well, talking about what the Bengals are wanting for Trey Hendrickson, saying league sources say that the Bengals are still asking for a first-round pick in any deal for Trey Hendrickson at this time. Trade deadline arrives in just over 28 hours, and teams are continuing to call Cincinnati about a number of their players. For now, the prices remain high. So we'll see if the Bengals end up trading Trey Hendrickson, but it seems right now that they still want at least a first-round pick. And I do think, in the past, no team has been willing to play ball for a first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson. But, if the Eagles are out here giving up a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips, who is not near as close as the player that Trey Hendrickson is, I think you might be able to, make a deal for a first-round pick. You never know. I think it might end up being, maybe multiple second-round picks, maybe a couple third-round picks as well to kind of get into that same category there. But, continuing to talk about, some of the possible trade partners here as well for Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals. Buffalo Bills, they need some edge rush help right now. The Dallas Cowboys, their edge rushing room is absolutely garbage as well. And, they're kind of in the same spot as the Bengals right now. I think their team is a little bit better just overall, but their defense is really, really bad as well. And then I think the one that makes the most sense there is trading him and getting him linked back up with the Lou Anarumo and the Indianapolis Colts.